first step to achieving a massive dream is conquering tiny impulses.
Yeah. I think it's exactly what we were talking about earlier. It's like, if you like, I got there's a tweet that I made. Actually, you were the one who made it go viral, right? Which was
when you quoted me quoting you to David Goggins.
Yeah.
It's just this endless human centipede of fucking Hormozi quotes.
It was
going
really
around the
Churchill
internet.
who said it first.
It was Churchill. Thank you.
But it's like, you don't build confidence by shouting affirmations in the mirror, but by stacking.
Having an undeniable stack of proof that you are who you say you are.
Thank you. That's
outwork your self-doubt.
Thank you. There.
Yeah. I'll quote you to you, which is a new low thing.
So that, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people were like, no, but what if you don't have any successes? Like, how do you get started? And I still think that the quote is 100% valid. It's that they don't realize the validity of the smaller things that they have done up to that point. And so it's being able to transfer your successes of like, okay, like, did you get dressed this morning? Like, did you get in front of the computer? Like, you have evidence, it's smaller evidence, but you have enough evidence to make the claim that you can do this. And then you do that enough times that you have enough evidence to make a claim that you can do this and support it. And I think that's where the big outcomes come from, lots of constrained tiny impulses of saying like, you know what, I'm going to get this tiny victory and I know how to say no to that. I know to say no to heroin today or whatever.
Yep.
That would be a hard one, you know.
Larger impulse, yeah.
Probably larger. But that's the idea, is just stacking as many of those pieces of evidence that give you proof that you are who you say you are, that you have done what you say you can do.
Yeah, it's the challenge of action or belief first is something that I've been playing around with so much. And my friend James, he wrote a book, The C Word, like confidence. It was a book about how to be confident, right? And I do feel like a big footnote summary could have been that quote from you.
Proof.
And the problem is, this is something that I've seen as well. A good example coming from a world where I was successful in business before I was successful personally. Mm-hmm. I have a skill set now, and my capacity within this particular skill set and the performance of what that does are intrinsically linked, right? There's almost a linear relationship. As I become better at networking with guests, with recording, with doing all of the other things, the show increases. When I ran a business, there were so many degrees of freedom between my inputs to the business and the success of the business that someone with like malignant imposter syndrome could always explain away how things had gone well. So I would say, oh, it's because we timed the market right. Oh, it was because of like this member of staff that we brought in. I mean, I trained him, but really he would have been great without me or whatever. And self-doubt can sort of wheedle its way in very sort of nefarious ways when you do that. Then switching to something where you have a relatively undeniable stack of proof, even undeniable to the part of you that wants to deny proof, right? Which is that imposter syndrome. After a little while, it's just a crushing weight that I call it imposter adaptation. So, you know, if you continue to disprove your imposter syndrome in the real world and it persists, you have to admit to yourself that it's got nothing to do with your capabilities and everything to do with your addiction to feeling like an imposter. This is just a trend of how you think about the world. You're looking for you have competence without confidence, which is a lack of belief, and confidence without competence is self-delusion, right? So you need to have this balance between the two. But people, when they say, well, surely self-belief becomes before action, I'm like, well, not particularly. Not if that's not your nature. I don't think, like, you're asking for delusion there. And it is significantly easier for you to think, I am a fitness person if you just went to the gym and did 10 push-ups, than I am a fitness person when I go to the gym tomorrow and do 10 push-ups. Like, where's the, show me, spit and sawdust. Where's the fucking reality of this, you know?
I agree.
Good. Opportunities only look like opportunities in the rearview mirror. Today, they look like risk. How does someone get around this asymmetry between the fact that, in retrospect, it seemed totally obvious, and yet the thing that you're looking at right now, looking forward, you go, oh, that might not be obvious in retrospect again.
It's tough because a lot of the big wins, you know, like Uber's the classic example, right? Like, let's start a business where strangers pick up girls who are 16, you know what I mean, and drive them to their friends' houses. Like, that sounds like a terrible idea, right? Like, but in retrospect, you're like, no, it'll be totally fine because there's going to be a mutual rating system and blah, 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 right? Taking out the fact that there are people who've been captured and whatever. Anyway, we'll put that to the side, right? And the thing is like, just because we're on the investing side, what we found is that there are always reasons to say no to a deal. You can always find reasons to say no because there's nothing that's risk-free. Even treasuries have risk. The U.S. economy could collapse and treasuries could be worth nothing. And you could create a really compelling argument. Lots of influencers spend a lot of time doing that, right? Is it likely? Maybe, I don't know, but it's probably less likely than a bank failing. Because if the U.S. fails, all the banks by default are also failing. So which of these is greater risk? So then you start comparing risks rather than trying to eliminate risks. And so if we're looking at opportunities, that's why like risk-adjusted return is one of the things that a lot of investors look at, which is like, is there a way that I can appropriately adjust this risk to normalize different opportunities? And I think that single skill set is one of, if not the most important skill sets as an entrepreneur, because fundamentally it's betting. Like that's what we're doing. We're making bets. Every day we bet with our time, we bet with our money. With the limited constraints we have or limited resources we have against unlimited opportunities. Because that's the hard part, is that it's unlimited women in the red dress. Now there's some 4s and there's some 6s and there's some 8s, but you have to both rate the girl, right? The opportunity. And then also how crazy is she, right? Or whatever risk factor you want to, associate with this. Is she going to stab me in my sleep? I don't know, right? Does she have a crazy ex-boyfriend? I don't know about. I don't know, right? And so that's why we do the diligence process. But like the way that because I just tied up this chapter in the book that's coming out, is when we're organizing opportunities that we're going to pursue with a business, we look at what are the ones that we have the absolute highest likelihood of success, that we need no new skills and no new effort. If we can do that, or the least amount of new effort and no new skills, that would be the first thing we're going to do. And then once we take off all the ones that take basically no effort and no extra skills, we're like, okay, which ones take more effort and still no skills? And then once we do that, then we're like, okay, now we can start learning a new skill. And of the different skills that we could learn, which of these is going to give us the highest leverage, as in most output for the least amount of input? And that's pretty much how we tick down which of these opportunities we want to pursue, because those have the lowest likelihood of not happening.
Does this work in the personal world as well? There's someone that isn't an investor, that isn't in business, that's just thinking about life opportunities. Do I want to learn to salsa dance or code?
I think that the investor frame is simply people who have been scored and quantified on their ability to make decisions. And so I think that we can learn a ton from how investors make decisions overall. It's like why Ray Dalio's book, Principles, became like a bestseller, even though 99.9% of people who are reading the book aren't even investors, or definitely not investors at his level. But the principles of good decision making are just quantified, and we have a scoreboard for these guys being excellent decision makers. Whereas most other people, you don't have a real scoreboard, so we can't tell how valid is their advice. And I think that's what makes taking advice from really world-class investors who've been doing it for decades as a great source of information, because we can validate that they have a stack of undeniable proof that they are who they say they are.
What's happening, people? If you enjoyed that, then press here for the full, unedited episode. And don't forget to subscribe. Peace.